from Columbus. Welcome to another session of Code Gurbani. The Shabad that we are going to consider today is Tanasri Mahalla Panjwa Chaturdasa Kino Balapana. I think this is a Shabad that everyone is very familiar with. And as in the past few Shabads, our intention here is to see whether or not the popular understanding of the Shabad makes any sense. So with that said, Harvinder has assigned me the responsibility. So a bit unexpected, but nonetheless, I will try and muddle my way through, as always. That said, let me first read through the passage quickly, and then we'll come back to its sort of literal meanings. Tanasri Mahalla Panjwa Chaturdasa Kino Bal Apana Sir Upar Kar Taryo Kripa Kataksh Avalokan Kino Das Ka Dukh Bidaryo Harjan Rakhe Gur Govind Kant Laye Ab Gun Sab Mete Dayal Purkh Baksand Rahao Jo Mangay Thakur Apne Te Soi Soi Deva Nanak Das Mukte Jo Bola Iha Uha Sach Hova. So that's the passage. And what I'll do first is just quickly run down line by line what the meaning of the words mean, or at least what they mean to me. So Chaturdasha Kino Balapna Sirupar Kartaryo. Chaturdasha, obviously in all four directions, everywhere. Kino Balapna has established its power or reign. Sirupar. Sir is literally on the head. So it means above all. It reigns above all with a protective hand. Kar is hand, kartaryo. So the power of the force extends forever in all directions, and it also has its protective hand over its own creation. Kripa Katak Avalokan Kino Das Ka Dukh Bidaryo. Kripa obviously is, a favor or a blessing. Kataksh is actually, I looked this up in the Sanskrit dictionary, and interestingly, it means a glance, a side glance, not even a direct, but a side glance, and it's like someone keeping an eye over somebody. Avlokan again means to watch over. Avlokan Kino. Dukh. I won't dwell on this a little bit until I'm finished with the explanation, because I think Dukh Sukh is a concept that we need to spend a little bit of time on. But one can think of Dukh as in the popular sense of unhappiness, distress, anxiety, whatever it may be. Bidaryo, eliminated, taken away. So here it is saying that with the benevolent glance, kripa, kataksh. So the glance is a benevolent one. My dukh has been cleansed or moved away or pushed away. Again, we'll come back to dukh because I find this an interesting word. Harjan rakhe gur govind. Kanthalayav gun submete, Dayal Purkh Baksand Rahao. So Gur Govind, Gur, as we know, is Har. Har is the gun. Har Jan Rakhe. So Rakhe is protects, takes care of, guides. Several meanings to it, but I think that guidance is probably the most appropriate here. Gur Govind, Govind of course refers to the creator. Gur refers to the knowledge, the gyan that connects us to the creator. So Gur Govind connection here. Kanthalai, Kant is to take in one's embrace. Avgun typically refers to human failings, shortcomings. Mete is to eliminate. Dayal again is benevolent. Purkh is being, and Baksand is obviously one who is filled with grace. So here It is what is being said is that the Guru here, Hari, guides me in my journey, and in its benevolence and grace, this power, this force that we call ik, uh, enables the linking between my consciousness and the universal consciousness. So this talk about linkage as a result of benevolence and as a result of the knowledge of the guru that is given. So then, of course, the last two lines, Jo mange Thakur apne te, soi soi deve. Jo mange is pretty obvious, all that is asked for, needed. Thakur is the creator, master. Soi soi. I have sort of read this to mean soi means that which is needed, if you relate it to the previous line. Soi soi deva, meaning provides for. The interesting question would be, what does he provide for and what is being asked for? And here the last line, Nanak Das mukte jo bole, iha uha sach hoye. Mukte is, of course, to speak. Bole is, again, that which is spoken. Iha is here and now, uha next, and in the future, yet to come. Such hove will be in existence. And such is, of course, such, the truth, the creator. So here, my take is that the word das here, interestingly enough, has an anchor which got me thinking that Nanak Das here must be self-referent. Nanak must be referring to himself as Das, which again is another interesting concept because it is important to know who the Das is and who the Thakur is. But we'll come back to that in our discussion. So for now, I'm reading this to mean his servant Nanak, Nanak as the Das, the servant, and not physical servant, but the spiritual servant, is Jo bole, yaha jo bole sach hoye. I think what is being said here is that Nanak, the Das, has linked himself. So whatever he speaks is in accordance with this such or this creator. So it's true here and thereafter because he's not speaking from his own ego self. That, in a nutshell, is how I have read this literally. Uh, what went through my mind, I'll share with you as I looked at this, and what I was thinking about was, I hear in our Gurdwara, for instance, here in Columbus, when the Granthi does the Ardas every Sunday, without fail, he'll stick this line in, Jo mange Thakur apne te, soi soi deve. And I, for the longest time, have been challenging him. I mean, even though I myself not that clear. And I said, how can it makes no sense to suggest that whatever is asked for, Jo mange, will be given. In other words, that all of your desires will be fulfilled. Because we know from our own experience that this could not possibly be about desires for material things or objects, which is what we are hankering after. Because if that were the case, if that was so, then we should be getting whatever we ask for. And I think we'd all agree that clearly that does not happen. We do not get whatever we wish for. So then the question is that we must try and look for an alternative explanation to this. What is it that is being asked for? And what is the passage suggesting here? So it seems to me that here it is the narrative of an individual consciousness that is connecting with with Govind through the Guru, and then once that linkage is established, Dukh Bidaryo. And here I want to turn our attention to Dukh Bidaryo. I actually went to the Sanskrit dictionary again because I've never done this before, and I said, commonly we think of Dukh Sukh as happiness, unhappiness. And just as is the case with our desires, Jo mange Thakur te, we think of it as the byproduct of material sort of fulfillment. That it brings us happiness or unhappiness in this sort of very narrow sense. And so I went to the Sanskrit dictionary. I use Monier Williams's dictionary for those of you who are interested, and it is combined with the Apte, which is standard works, the Apte dictionary. And I found an explanation of this very interesting. The word dukh comes from a compound of dus and khai, which means dush means bad, and ka suggests a space or a hole that is obstructed. So it's and the connection with Indian thought from where it comes is that it refers to the wheel of life, and it suggests that dukkha simply means that the axle, the center of your life, is not sort of fixed properly or aligned properly, and therefore you're in a bad space. I mean, your ride, your journey is just not smooth. So I took that to mean that dukh probably means being in a rut that we are all in, and I think of the rut these days as being the rat race that we are in, and that is what arouses a lot of anxieties in us. And this orientation in Gurbani is also called dhat, as opposed to live. So I think that being in dukkha simply means that the space that you're in is just not is very toxic, and you need to get out of it. And its opposite, in contrast, sukha, is a good space. So when this linkage occurs of the individual consciousness with the universal consciousness, that you move into a better space, and I think of it in common parlance as being a state of centeredness, more centeredness, where your actions are not being not the fulcrum of your actions is not really your ego self, but now you're lined up with hukam at this stage. So all of your actions are emanating from a completely different perspective, because you have now recognized, or at least understood, who your real self is and what your purpose might be here. So with that said, this is really my take on this Shabad. And I did go and actually, just as a matter of sharing with you, how I went about looking at this, what interested me. I also looked at some Shabads to see what Das really was, and who the Das here is. It couldn't mean a physical Das. It had to be the excuse me, consciousness. And I did find some interesting passages. There was one in Tanasri Malla Panjwa itself. Apna naam de jap jiva puran hoye das ki kaal. And there was another one that said, Har charan saran gobind dukh panjana das apne ko naam devo. And then there was yet another one in Mahalla Pehla, which kind of shed some light on this. It is the Nasri Mahalla Pehla, Sehaj mile milya parwan, naat smaran navan jan, and then it goes, Thakur mein das, das mein soe, jai dekha te avar na koe. So I began to get a sense that das, and it's used with an ankur and without an ankur. So I imagine that the one without das refers to all of these individual consciousness, and where it comes with Nanak and das, it's self-referring. And there was one that particularly struck me in Todi Mahalla Panjwa, where the Shabad line, I'll just read the line, is Jo mange soi soi pave, save har ke charan rasayan. So again, it occurred to me, at least I could settle in my mind, that we are not talking about Jo mange Thakur apne the as being a transactional call to the Almighty for material goods, because A, we know that just doesn't happen in all cases, and B, if we are to look at Gurbani in the perspective that we should be looking at it, it has to be a matter of inner engineering. So with that said, I'm, I guess, open to discussion. Harvinder, start with the usual sequence. Chetandeep Singh.
Hanji Veerji, thank you so much for your explanation. It makes complete sense. Especially the references you quoted. My only observation would be that I'm not very sure about the last line being self-referential, even though Das has an onkar. Could it could it mean uh, could the Das with an onkar mean that particular Das? And if we say that particular Das who has done the seva, that's still singular and it's not self-referential. So
It could
could
be. I'm open to that suggestion as well. I mean, it could be both, for all I know, right? But it could very well be. We'll just let the other members of the forum chime in and see.
so sure. So I while listening to you,
It's difficult to hear you.
Hear me or
No, yeah,
Chetandeep?
Charandeep,
Chetandeep Singh,
I'll try to
nede aa
slow.
jao.
Hanji. So
please. Yeah.
while listening to the Shabad, the line came Kant lie Avgun sab mete Dayal Purak Paksan. So listening to the word Avgun, it reminded me of another very common Shabad that we do.
Mhm.
Hum Avgun pare ek gun nahi. Amrit chad bikhe bikhahi. So I was just trying to put these two lines together. uh, on one hand, Guru Sahib is saying, I don't even know if this question makes sense, so just feel free to pass. But on one hand, Guru Sahib is saying, "Kant lie avgun sab mete," right? And on the other hand, he's saying, "Hum avgun pare." Uh, at first, seemingly there seems to be some contradiction. I'm not sure if you have anything to say on that.
I will just say very simply that it is being spoken in different contexts, right? So, one is the state of an individual that has not yet, Kant, who has not been embraced, taken in the embrace, is full of avgun. So I think it is a matter of context. It's contextual. The difference is contextual rather than philosophical. But again, let's pass it on to the rest to chime in. Do you have anything else? Can I move on?
Definitely. I think you answered your one of the things that I was originally thinking to ask a question, like especially Jo Mange,
Mhm.
because what will the Das ask for? But when you quoted this Shabad, uh, Das apne ko naam devo, so I think it became pretty
Yeah,
clear.
exactly, because that sheds light on what is the das, asking for. Because here in this Shabad, it doesn't very clearly state that, but if you look at other Shabads, you get an indication right away. And
Right.
actually, just reading through Gurbani would tell you that what is the Mangana right? I mean, so you
Right.
kind of know exactly what is being asked for. There shouldn't, at least I think people on this forum should not be confused about that. We've
ठीक
talked through this enough times.
है.
With that, I move on to Ekunkarji.
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Well, when I was listening to you speak, the two things that struck me, one is this idea about like the transactional prayer where we get whatever we ask for. And in my own experience, I've definitely felt the difference between when my heart, my inner being, the inner essence is longing for something, and I've never felt that those prayers went unanswered. But they're not from the mind, and they're not from desire, and they're not from planning or cleverness or imagining what I think I need. Those other prayers kind of come unbidden in the moment, and they just sort of arise from a deep spiritual place. And I've never not had those prayers answered when they come from that place. It's just not mental. It's just not what you control. The things I ask for from my mind and my desire, either I don't get it or I get it and I regret it. Like it's either one of those two things. So I think the notion of who's asking and where that request is coming from would be interesting to explore. And then I also really loved the way you broke down Duk. And when you were talking, I was thinking in alignment or not in alignment. That when we're not in alignment with Hukam, then we experience pain. And when we're in alignment, we experience the flow or contentment or happiness. And I just really appreciated that.
Thank you. My only comment on what you said about prayers arising, when they've arisen from the heart. I think at that moment, perhaps, those are moments when we are indeed linked, because I think we fluctuate, from one state to another. And we all sort of experience this connection from time to time. And I think whatever arises from that source happens, and it's not a desire, as you said, or a longing for a material thing. But thank you for your observation. Haji Gurdeep Singh Veer ji.
Haji, you explained it well, but I will relate it to historical background, historical fact of that time. So that's why there are a couple of shabds like that related to this. There's Dust Brahman Mua Hoike Sool, Pratham Matiya Jo Patri Chalao, Dutiya Macha Jo Purush Manuk Pahchao, Tritiya Mata, Main Sab Kuch Chhod Main Prab Tujhe Te Aaya. This is the background when the Suli Khan attacked. Then he says, Suli Te Narayan Rakh. So I think all these shabds are related to that historical background of that time. That's why somewhere it's requested to the God by the gurus that he will protect us. Then once he got protection, like Suli Khan, he died himself, he burnt into cell. Then same thing, one Brahman came to kill Guru Hargobind Ji when he was a little baby. I don't want to go into deep stories. Then he was protected, and Dusra Brahman Mua Hoike Sool. That when you read these sequences of all these Shabad, this will be remind you or take you back to those stories which was being happened at that time. Now we say, why is the one purpose of that story to us? So Gurbani says another place, Babaniya, Kahaniya, Put Sput Karen. Other point it says, Padosi ke jo hua, apne ghar bhi jaan. Third point it says, Prathaye Sakhi, Mahapurkh bol de, Sanji Sagal Jahane. Even those were the particular happenings that happened at that time. It could happen to anybody, it's being happened to everybody, to all of us. So this Shabad was, I think, because I have to find the sequence of times, it's a big job. When it was dictated by Guru Arjan Dev Ji, after which happening, then it finds, if something happens good to someone, he goes to Gurdwara, he prays, he can utter this Shabad, Chatardisa Ki Nobel Apna, because we are always asking every day, here and there, we have fear, we are losing jobs or something happened wrong in the family. So when we overcome all those hurdles, then this Shabad applies. But otherwise, as a normal person like I am, Chanchal Mat Bark Bapre Ki Sarp Agan Karmele. This was one of you refer Ravindra Veer Ji. Very good actually reference you gave. Our demand keep on changing. But mother will never give a poison to his son. This is the other Shabad, if you have to enunciate pura. Chanchal mat bark bapare ki sarp agan kar mele. Oh, sapnu he will try to catch a sunbeam and he put his hand on the fire. So anyway, so you already explained very much, but I think with this context, is to explain hard, but we have to relate the other Shabad and the historical background of that time, which related to all of us any time. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Ji. Just a quick passing observation. I think here you talked about protection in very specific circumstances in relation to Suli Khan, in relation to Guru Hargobind. But I think here it is saying that Bal apna sir upar karta rahe ho. I mean, I think there is no question that his protection, the protection of this power is on us all the time, without even us having to worry about specific things. So I am reading this Shabad in that context, that protection is forever. It's as infinite as the power of this, of the Creator. But thank you very much, Ji. Anji, Kulwant Kaur Bhenji.
Sir, Fateh Ji. I think I don't have nothing much to add
That's
on
fine.
because you explained everything so well. But I did, in the beginning, I do have question like what kind of things we should ask for, what are the right things, and obviously, we should ask for Nam. And sometimes being a human being, I personally want to say that, I do ask for material. I mean, worldly things too, and I do get it, and later I regret it. So yes. So I think the ultimate thing we have to ask for is his Nam. That's all I want to say. You
Hanji,
explained.
thank you, Ji. And I'll just share my own personal experience in terms of what to ask for and what not to ask for. And I'm being very honest. I actually don't ever pray to ask for anything. I
Mhm,
haven't in a long, long time. And I don't even ask for Nam.
mhm.
I think you just have to accept life as it comes
Yes.
and just move on. I mean, I don't personally feel the need to sort of rush about asking for this, that, or the other. Thank you, Ji, for the observation. Hanji Ranavir Ji.
Hanji, can you hear me?
Bilkul Ji.
Well, thank you very much for very detailed and I think from my point of view, very informative explanation of the Shabbat. Yes, you said that you never ask for anything. That's great. You see, your mental and physical and emotional state must be very high compared to
I
me.
don't know. I mean, I'm just being honest. I just
No,
don't.
no, sure. No,
I don't feel a need to.
no, that's very good.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm in different state. Anyways, as you were explaining, a few thoughts came to my mind, which I'm going to share. One thing is, I think Jo Mange Thakur apne te soi soi deve Nanak Das. I thought Guru Sahib Das, they're referring not to himself as Das, but I think he's saying the person, as you said, who has attained a state where his inner consciousness has merged into universal consciousness, can't lie. That is the embrace. Once a Das has attained that state, then at the state, whatever he or she is going to ask, and that's, of course, as we said, that they are going to ask for only spiritual goods like Nam or something related to Bani or something like that. So, Jo Mange, you're right on that one. But one thing which puzzles me, let me give you a little background of my thought. When I was going through the Shabad, although the Shabad is written by Guru Arjan Sahib Ji, let's go back to Guru Nanak Sahib for a second. He traveled all over the places, okay, whether it's Sri Lanka, whether it's Assam, whether it's Iran, Persia, and all those places. And I wonder, when he was traveling around all those places, and he will sit down under a tree and will ask Mardana or Bala, whosoever, okay, play that guitar or whatever you have the instrument, and let's
Rabab.
rabab, and let's there are 50 people sitting there and listening to the Shabad. No, what Guru Sahib is trying to do at the time, are they communicating this to the 50 common people sitting there? Or are they putting together a Bani so the future generation can intellectualize it, the details? And that something begs the question that what was the intent at the time? Was he really communicating with that? Now, coming back to Guru Arjan Sahib Ji, same thing I thought was that when this Shabad or any other Shabad, we are trying to communicate with the Sangat who are sitting there, people like me sitting there may not be people like you who can intellectualize it and say that this Guru Sahib is saying. So there could be different levels of this meaning. People who think about these things, the way we are thinking, they will be very few, I think. But common people think in very simple terms. And so that question bothers me a little bit, that where the translation interpretation should go. Are we trying to go deeper and deeper because we think this is what Guru Sahib wanted us to understand? So I don't have an answer for that. I'm just raising that question. The second question came because Purose di gal, there's so much talk about Purosa and Bani, faith in Bani. What role does it play? Jo mange Thakur apne the. How does we correlate that faith with this concept of mange? Yes, we are not looking for material things. It's not something what we should be looking for, but people are looking for that. Okay, that's the reality in the world because the Bani is for the common people. It's not for people who are already attained, who are Pagat. It's not for them. It's for common people. So I couldn't balance this one. So I'll throw it open for any reaction to my
Anji.
confusion.
Anji, I think you raise very interesting points. I'll just give you my 2 cents on it. I personally am in complete agreement with you. I think that Gurbani speaks to different people at different levels, and somebody who's not quite as not approaching it in as intellectual a fashion as we are on this forum might just read it very simply to say, hey, I mean, Jo mange Thakur apne te soi deve. This is what the average, I mean, I wouldn't even want to call them the average Joe, but the fact is that that is what a lot of people think. And to me, there is no reason for us who are thinking somewhat differently, or let's say for me, who's thinking a little differently when he says, hey, I don't feel the need to ask for anything. I would never go and... So when my wife wants to do an ardas, because she's constantly asking for things, but she'll also have me come stand with her. I don't say I'm not coming. I do. I go there. But, so I think that people definitely react to Bani differently. And as far as I'm concerned, it's perfectly okay. I mean, there is, I think in a particular way, you think in a particular way. People on this forum have their own take on it. And as far as I'm concerned, it's all okay. It's all fine. And so, did Guruji intend for us to intellectualize this? I often wonder about that too. But then I think again, and I say that this is scripture, right? So scripture speaks to people differently. So you make what you want to of it, I think. And then in the end, it is not just about intellectualization, but it's also experiential. And sometimes you can intellectualize the thing and not really experience it or understand it, which creates problems. Sometimes you experience something and you can't intellectualize it, and that creates its own problems. So I think somewhere the mix is probably what it is. But thank you for the observation. And I think we are left with Veerji Gurjeet Singh. Hanji Gurjeet Singh Veerji.
Hanji Veerji, Vaheguru Ji ka Khalsa. Thank you, Fateh. It's good you started the discussion well. Time for me to add my 2 cents.
Please.
We'll start from the Rahao. Harijan Rakhe Gur Gobind. Rakhe is past tense. That previous to me, because he's 5th Mahalla, all the Pagats and the 4 Mahallas were given a protection by a wisdom. Rakhya is only from Kam, Kro, Lomo, Hankar. He's not trying to, because Jamman Marna Hukam hai. No one can give you protection. The Sulhi story, all these, nothing to do with us, but we have put them deliberately there because those people believed in those things. As a Pagat, that is the prime thing. Harijan, he's a Das, was always protected. His wisdom was protected. How? Which he says on the first line, Chatur Disa, not 4 directions. Chatur is Syana. And this is my state, he says. The state I have achieved now is Chatur. How I have achieved it? Kino Balapna. My Gobind has given me his wisdom. How? Sir Upar. He has put the blessing on me because I asked for it. We never asked for that. That's why we never get it. If we ask it, Guru Nanak says, never happened that he never gives you one. But we are too busy. There's a very clear hymn about that. Jo mange hai to mange hai biya. He says that all the human beings always ask for Maya. Tate kushal na kahu thiya. No one has ever obtained a mukti. Mangan mangta ikke hai mang. Nanak jate par hai parag. He says you should only ask for one thing. Give me that wisdom which 5th Patsha is discussing here. And it comes from your Guru Gobind. Guru Gobind is your inner conscious. What does Guru Gobind do? Kantalai. He's not embracing you. He's putting his throat into you. You speak on his behalf. It's not Kant. We are thinking he's embracing with the gala. It's not gala. He's given me a voice, his own voice of truth. But before that, I have to finish my Avgun. That is to be done through jap. Once I do this, I come closer to him. Then he do this Kantalai. This is what the bakshish is. Dayal Purakh Bakshand. What is the bakshish? Kirpa Katak Avlokan Kino. Katak is the first ray of light. If you are in absolute darkness, the very first ray of light is known as Katak. That is how he gives you the wisdom as a form of almost an electric spark, he says. Avlokan Kino. Avlokan word has come from Lochan. He has given me an inner eye, what you call Tisra Netra. They don't say Tisri Ak, it's a Tisra Netra. Das ka dukh bidaryo. Once I got that wisdom, what the dukh is with me now, that was my only dukh, that I was not getting the naam. I was not getting that wisdom. So this is done by my Guru Gobind, the one sitting. The Shabad is spoken by a Vivek Buddhi, who has attained this stage and is telling how others can do it. Then in the last stage, he says, Jo mange Thakur apne te. Because what now the Bhagat has to do, he has to tell the truth of the Dargah. He has to give the explanation. Unha. Iha, we know a lot of things, but the Unha such is to be mixed with the Iha such and is to be given in the form of Gurbani. That's what he's asking for. That the Buddhi says, I sometimes don't have enough wisdom, that I ask from my Thakur, the one inside me, just for the explanation of what is happening in the next world. Har dargah kiyan bata Nanak Haq sunave. The Buddhi has to ultimately explain that to us, and if she finds that there is not enough wisdom, she is lacking, she always asks from the inner, and then only Das can tell you what is happening in the next world, what we have to do to reach there. And this is all what I took from this Shabad. I never did this as a Chatur, because there are a lot of Shabad where Chatur word comes in this form of making you Syana.
So yes, you're right. I was going to ask you, because I did actually look at other Shabads with the word Chatur, and it is in the sense of Syana. However, how do you reconcile Chatur here with Disa? Disa to me is direction, right? I mean, so what does it mean to say Chatur Disa? I mean, Syana.
More like Dasha. That's my present, where I'm sitting now. I'm sitting east, west, north, south, where I'm sitting in a state of absolute blissfulness. That's my direction now, which means I'm basically inwards. My Disha is now inwards, not outwards.
Haji, thank you, Virji. Does anybody else have anything to ask Gurjeet Singh Virji, or to raise a point or make an observation? I think that was a good take on this Shabad. Clarifies a lot of things. So I'm going to take the liberty of translating this as Syana, Dasha, Virji, and I'm going to acknowledge you on this, and I think it'll be the first time that we ever read such a translation.
Yeah, I've been going like this, and I say why because there is Shabad coming with Disa. If it is Chaitan, it has to be, Char Kunt Dah Dis Prame. It has to be Disha with a 10. And there is also 2 Shabads come with Dah Disa.
Yeah, I looked at these. I just couldn't figure, because I got stuck with the Disa. I couldn't get past direction. So
yeah, but even direction in the long run is what is direction, is where you are basically standing.
Yeah, state. It's the state that you're in, the state of your consciousness or your mind. Yes, I get that. So
either we are in a Murkha Disha or a Chatur Disha, I think.
Yeah. Makes sense. Makes absolute sense. Does anyone want to comment on this?
Yeah. Can I add something?
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
So I was thinking about this Shabad from a little different perspective, not from an intellectual or from a materialistic, but uh, as you and Virji spoke, like if we take this Shabad as not a literal meaning, but as a state of mind of someone who is a das or who is traveling in that direction, then the first line could very well mean either of both, and it does not make a difference to the Shabad. And what I feel, like if we take this whole Shabad as a state of mind, like a das is communicating with that Thakur, and what he is asking is basically not material goods, not spiritual goods. All he is asking is Naam. And Naam is basically loss of your own identity, self demolition, right? And in this Shabad, it portrays a intense hunger to self demolize. That and for that we need a lot of courage. And I think if in this Shabad, the Das is basically self assuring himself or herself that that Thakur is very powerful, even either individually to me, if we take that line as Siana, or to the whole world, and he's there to support you. He is going to that uh, that my dukh of home is so intense that, but he's going to take care of me. It's more of requesting or gathering the courage to get Naam, which is loss of my own identity.
So, no, I mean, you make a good point. I would just make this observation: when you are assuming that Naam means loss of identity or self demolition, right? It would be perhaps more appropriate to say that the ask or the mange is for wisdom, as Gurjeet Singh Virji said, right? It is when you, because right now when you're doing the mange, you don't have the wisdom. When you get the wisdom, self demolition will just occur. I don't think that you would start with that.
No, but I
That,
think the other Shabad that you shared before, Das apne ko naam devo, right?
yeah,
You're asking
but what is Naam? I mean, it's wisdom, right? It's knowledge, Gyan. So when you get that Gyan, it might automatically cause self demolition. My point is, how do you know that self demolition is really what is needed? You're saying that only because all of us have heard that. But when
no,
you get
because
wisdom, you might come to that conclusion as an experience.
right, as an experience like
Right,
Jeevan Marana, right? Like
right,
the
right,
the the hunger to for yourself to die and be one. And you're right, it happens with that realization, or
right.
as called wisdom.
So
But
when you say self demolition, it's more intellectual.
uh, I think maybe I'm not able to communicate what I have in mind,
No, let
but
me ask anybody else on the forum if they want to say something.
Well, this is Ekonkar.
Haji.
This won't be very coherent, but I'm just going to share some things that.
Oh, that's quite all right. We are all bumbling around, so except a few of us. But
I think the question Virji raised earlier about when Guru Nanak was just sitting with people, and he wasn't just sitting with the average Joe, right? Back in those days, he was sitting with people who were illiterate and had for generations not been allowed access to spiritual learning. And he sang and taught them songs. It's my personal feeling, or whatever, I don't even want to use the word personal, that simple doesn't mean simplistic. And I think that's the issue, is that just because wisdom can be communicated in a simple and effective way doesn't mean it's simplistic in meaning. And I believe he took the most profound insights and communicated in the simplest terms. And he spoke to whoever, like when he was sitting with the yogis, he spoke in their language. When he was sitting with, the Muslims, he was calling them out on their terms. Like he wasn't limited by vocabulary or lexicon. He found a way to communicate wisdom to the people in their lexicon where they are. But it's all ultimately the same wisdom, no matter how you dress it up or dress it down or what you use big words or you use small words. It doesn't, language is an expression of wisdom, not the defining characteristic of it.
Yeah, yes, indeed. But and it occurred to me as you were speaking that it speaks to what Ranavirji is saying. What was Guru Nanak trying to do? And as you were narrating, his experience with the average Joe, I was thinking, well, gee, yes. But then again, he was also having highly intellectualized or intellectual debates with the yogis. I mean, they were not ordinary average Joes. They were the elite of the time, very educated and knowledgeable, and so he was able to also operate at that level. To your point, I mean, he was talking to different people, but then having the capacity to perhaps share a message in a very simple term.
But there's one thing. Sorry.
Anji.
But there is one thing. The intent of any communication is, effective communication is, the receiver is able to get the message. Okay. Now, as Ikigaji was saying that the message is same, but Guru Sahib tried to communicate with common people and other people too, but the message is same. How could message be same if some people are not able to receive the same message as you and me can receive it? So there comes a confusion for me that if the intent of Guru Sahib was to communicate, that become Das first. Once you become Das, then you will forget about the material inclinations and you will ask for Naam only. But before you become Das, you have to understand that Guru Sahib is telling you what you have to do to get to that level. So my question to Ikikar or somebody else is that if common people are not able to comprehend the intellectual level of discussion we are having, so what was the intent of Guru Sahib to communicate?
And so this gets back to the idea of Naam, and I wouldn't support the idea that Naam is the destruction of self. I would say that Naam is the intuitive self, that we have a mental concept of who we are, and then we have an intuitive experience of who we are. And in every conversation, whatever someone's mental concept was, whether they were a Muslim or a Hindu or a yogi or a weaver or anyone, it's the same basic thing, which is, I can talk to you at the level of your conceptual self, but I want you to let go of the conceptual self and experience the intuitive self, which is aligned with Hukam in the divine. And that's where wisdom is, and ultimately it's not expressible.
I would agree. And I think that was the point I was trying to make to Chetan Deep. You just said it a whole lot clearly. That it's not necessarily, we talk about demolishing the self because in many ways we've been trained to believe that. But as you said, Naam is just wisdom that helps you identify your intuitive self. You connect with the real self, but that doesn't mean you've demolished the ego, because you can't do that to my mind. Anybody else? Vijay Gurjeet Singh, do you have any input into all of this?
Thank you. But I believe Naam is the top. Naam mein hi te sab kuch hua, bin Satguru naam na jape, Guru ka sabd maha ras meetha, bin chakhe sadh na jape. As probably you have tasted it because you are content very much in your life. I
don't know. I don't know. I'm not claiming anything.
That's the stage we need. You know, Tadi Prabhadar Mangana, he went to God's door to ask few things. But dekhde hain, Prabh dekhde hain, sab bhukh gayi, Tadi ko mangana chit na aave. Once you got a naam, you forget everything else. What we came for, or what we need.
You know, let me be honest also. The reason I don't ask for anything is, to my mind, I've gotten more than an idiot like me deserves. So manu dar lagda hai, I better not ask for anything because I've already gotten more than I deserve.
On the other hand, if I tell you, whatever I asked, look for in my life, I got it.
Yeah, I mean, you know, yeah.
I don't want to brag, you know. Kabira garam na kichi hai, rank na hasiye koe, abhi naav samundar mein hai, kya jana kal hoye. So I'm living here for 48 years left India without any money. You unbelieve it. I didn't know one night we had to spend my night and what we're gonna eat food next morning. And surprising somebody is standing behind me and he says, are you an architect? I said, yes. You looking for a job? Yes, why not? I had no money.
Anji,
Just borrowed a ticket. So anyway, these are personal experiences.
this happens, yes,
But
to
I
a lot of
appreciate
people.
what you said. You're content. I got everything, but my content is still I'm looking for Naam, as you said, which is supreme. Thank you very much.
Anji, we are almost out of time. Anybody else wants to chime in?
Hanji Veer ji.
Anji.
Dekho, naam, I think we have done it a few times. Gurbani says there are two sorts of naams. The one is Maran Jivan Ki Soji Hui. The one is, as Chetandeep saying, is the distraction of the vikars. That is Gyan. But the other naam is not explainable. I think Ek Onkar Kaur has given a bit of a. That is very intuitive. You can't explain it. But to make it into words is that what is Nanak Das is asking for. Because that is almost unexplainable. From there, it's only written in Gurbani, Prathame Makhan Pache Doodh, that it comes as a pure butter, which Bani Amrit Sari. But from Bani to make Gurbani is what you need a full intellectual of this world as well. You don't want to give a wrong example in Maya that it goes wrong way. That's why we use the word Do Malada. Do Malada is not a turban you tie on your head. It is do mals. It is a pure knowledge of this world, physical world, and also a knowledge of the true world. And then it has to be mixed together to give a message. And lastly, I'll say that Guru Nanak never talked to a common man. You're absolutely right. He only spoke to the heads, either to Qazis or to the mullahs or to the jogi heads. He didn't have time to go and explain it to everyone. So that is what my intake is. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa.
Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh ji. One last call for anybody. We have a minute or two left. If not, I think we've had a very interesting discussion, and hopefully we'll have some more. I think we have one session left, after which we go on a break, the next week's session. So with that said, thank you very much. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.